Hello everyone, welcome to Brain Blitz Audios. Today, in this episode of Tallentex, we're going to be looking at questions of the Allen Talent Search Examination for grade 10 students. Now, these are questions taken from 2018, and these are the sample questions that we're going to be looking at. So, let's start off with a question of physics. So here we have an assertion and reason. We need to find out if the assertion reasons are true, and the reason is the correct explanation or not. So whether one of these four options is correct. Let's look at the assertion and reason. An observer standing on the bank of a sea finds that 54 waves are reaching the bank per minute. If the wavelength of the waves is 10 meters, then their speed will be 9 meters. Reason. This follows from V equals lambda f. So option A says both assertion and reason are true, and reason is the correct explanation of the assertion. Option 2 says that reason is not the correct explanation, although both of them are true. Option 3 says assertion is true, reason is false. Option 4 says assertion is false, reason is true. So, how do we solve this question? Let's look at the assertion. The assertion says that 54 waves are reaching the bank per minute. If the wavelength of the waves is 10 meters, then their speed will be 9 meters per second. So how do we find the speed of a wave? Well, in this particular example, we know that 54 waves occur in 1 minute or 60 seconds. And the length of one wave is 10 meters. So that means the total wavelength will be 540 meters, because you have 54 waves times 10 meters. That gives you 540 meters. And the total time taken is 60 seconds for 54 waves. So what we're going to do is we're going to find out the speed of the wave by taking the total length and dividing it by the total time. So we know that velocity of the wave is displacement divided by time. In this case, it's the total wavelength, lambda total, divided by time taken. That means it's 540 divided by 60. The zeros gets cancelled. 54 is 9 times 6, so 6 goes into 54 9 times. So the velocity is 9 meters per second. So that means the assertion is correct. Now, what about the reason? The reason says this follows from V equals lambda f. Now, let's look at the formula. We took velocity v as the distance, which in this case is the total wavelength lambda, divided by the time. Now, the quantity that is frequency is written as 1 by time. Its dimensions are per second. So therefore, lambda by t can be written as lambda times f. So that means the reason v equals lambda f is the equation used is also correct. So both assertions and reason, both the assertion and reason is correct, and using our relation, we found out that it is the correct explanation, because that's the same formula that we used in order to get our velocity. So that means option 1, both assertion and reason are true, and reason is the correct explanation for the assertion, will be the correct option. So option A is the correct option. Option B says that both statements are correct, but it's not the correct explanation. That's incorrect, because it's the same formula that we used. And option 3 says the reason is false, which is incorrect. Option 4 says the assertion is false, which is also incorrect. So the correct option is option 1. That's the correct option for this question of physics asked in 2018 for grade 10. Let's look at another question. A ball is released from height h and another ball from height 2h. The ratio of time taken by the two balls to reach the ground is 1 is to root 2, root 2 is to 1, 2 is to 1, 1 is to 2. Now, from the second law of kinematics, S is equal to ut plus half ad squared, you can find out the ratio of time taken with respect to height. So we know that u is 0 because the ball is released, so the value of u equals 0. So that means s, whose value is h, equals half at squared. And here a is, again, the acceleration due to gravity, so that's gt squared. So when you take t squared on one side, you get 2h by g. So that means the value of time is equal to under root of 2h by g. So this is the formula for time taken by a ball released from a height, h. So we know that the time period t is proportional to under root of h. So that means time period of ball 1 divided by time period of ball 2 will be equal to, for the first ball, the height is h. So h divided by the second, for the second ball, the height is 2h. So under root of h divided by 2h is t1 by t2. The h's get cancelled, so you have under root of 1 by 2. So the root can now be distributed to the numerator and the denominator separately. So that's root 1 by root 2. We know that under root of 1 is 1. So it is 1 divided by root 2. The correct answer for this question is option 1. 1 is to root 2. So using the formula and finding out the relation between t and h, we get that the ratio of time taken by the two balls to reach the ground is 1 is to root 2. So that means option 1 is the correct option for this question, again asked in 2018. Let's look at this question. This question is from chemistry. A sample of pure water, irrespective of its source, contains hydrogen and oxygen in the ratio of 1:8 by mass. This data supports law of conservation of mass, law of constant proportion, law of multiple proportion, law of reciprocal proportion. So option 4 is incorrect because in chemistry, this is from the first chapter of chemistry and it does not have a law called the law of reciprocal proportion. And moving on, we have law of conservation of mass. So this says that the mass of reactants equals the mass of products. So if you were creating water, then the mass of the reactants, that means the mass of hydrogen plus the mass of oxygen, will give you the mass of water present. So that means option 1 is incorrect because that's not the case given here. Now what about option 3, the law of multiple proportion? Now in the law of multiple proportion, two elements, A and B, they mix together, they form compounds with different ratios of molecules in such a way that one of the elements will have a stable number and the other element will have a varying composition. Like for example, you have nitrogen and oxygen. From there you get NO, NO2, and NO3, and so on. So therefore, option 3 is also incorrect because here it says that irrespective of the source, pure water is in the ratio, has hydrogen and oxygen in the ratio of 1:8 by mass. And this means that the proportion of the elements in a pure water molecule is always constant. So that means option 2, the law of constant proportion, is the correct answer. Let's look at another question. 7.5 grams of a gas occupy 5.6 liters of volume at STP, standard temperature and pressure. Identify the gas. Is it NO, N2O, CO, or CO2? Now, how do we solve this question? Well, for that we need to use the concept of moles. Particularly, we need to find out the exchange between moles and liters. So in grade 10, we've studied that 1 mole equals 22.4 liters, or 22,400 ml. Now, the given volume is 5.6 liters. So that means number of moles present in 5.6 liters will be 5.6 divided by 22.4. Take the decimals off, you have 66 divided by 224. Both of them are divisible by 8. So 7 times 8 gives you 56, and 28 times 8 gives you 224. Now we know that 7 goes into 28 4 times, so 1 by 4 is the number of moles present in 5.6 liters of a gas. So for any gas, the number of moles present in 5.6 liters is 0.25. So that's the number of moles present. Now we need to find out which gas has 7.5 grams as its mass for 0.25 moles. Is it NO, N2O, CO, CO2? For that, we need to find out the molar mass of each of the compounds. So for option 1, we have the molar mass as nitrogen has a mass of 14, oxygen has a mass of 16. 14 plus 16 gives you 30. Now for N2O, it's again 14 and 16, but we have 2 nitrogen atoms, so that means molar mass is 28 plus 16. That gives you 44. Now for carbon monoxide, carbon has a mass of 12, approximate. Oxygen has a mass of 16. And the molar mass that you get is 12 plus 16, that is 28. And you have CO2 left, so 12 and 16, but you have 2 oxygen atoms, so that's 32 plus 12. So the molar mass is 44. Now, when you divide the molar masses by 4, you get the mass of the gas at 0.25 moles. So when you take 30 divided by 4, that equals 15 divided by 2. Both of them can be reduced by 2, and 15 by 2 gives you 7.5. So that means option 1 is the correct gas. The gas that occupies 5.6 liters of volume at STP while weighing 7.5 grams is nitrogen monoxide. Now what about N2O? N2O has 44 grams per mole. So 44 divided by 4 gives you 11. 28 divided by 4 gives you 7. And 44 divided by 4 again gives you 11. So the correct answer among the following is option 1, nitrogen monoxide. Let's look at another question. This one's from biology. Which of the following is mismatched? So here we have, parts of the nervous system, especially the brain, and we have functions. So option 1 says medulla oblongata regulates involuntary activities. Now this statement is true. This is correctly matched. So that makes this option incorrect. The reason being we have to find the mismatched pair. Now we have spinal cord, butterfly-shaped gray matter. This is present at the center of the spinal column. And outside this butterfly-shaped gray matter, we have a white matter that surrounds it. So that means option 4 is incorrect because the statement is true. The match is correct. Now what about cerebellum? It says equilibrium and posture of the body. So that means the posture of the body as well as its balance is regulated by the cerebellum. So this statement is again true. That makes the option incorrect. The correct answer is hypothalamus, appetite and satiety center, osmoregulation, voluntary movements. Now why is this option mismatched? Now this option is mismatched because the function that is voluntary movements is not under the control of the hypothalamus. It's under the control of the motor cortex. So that means the functions of the hypothalamus here are listed incorrectly, because voluntary movements occur in the motor cortex. So option 2 is the mismatched option, which makes it correct. Now note that the hypothalamus is responsible for hunger, thirst, as well as osmoregulation, so those functions are correct. But the function voluntary movements is found in the motor cortex and not in the hypothalamus, and that makes this option mismatched. Next question. Malaria is a chronic disease, congenital disease, acute disease, metabolic disease. So which of these is correct? For that, we need to understand the terms given here: chronic, congenital, acute, metabolic. Now, the term chronic disease refers to diseases that last a year or more, and they limit daily activities. So for example, if you have a cardiac arrest or diabetes and so on, those are chronic diseases and they limit daily activities. But let's move on and check out all of the diseases first. All of the definitions first, and then we'll look at which category malaria takes place in. So congenital disease are diseases which are present at or before birth. So these are the so-called birth defects. Now, what about metabolic diseases? Metabolic diseases are basically risk factors that increase chances of developing chronic diseases, like for example high sugar intake or high blood pressure and so on. These things are categorized as metabolic diseases. And finally, acute diseases. These are diseases that appear suddenly and last for a short period of time. Now, let's look at malaria. Malaria is caused by a parasite called Plasmodium, and it appears suddenly, and then with the right amount of treatment, it lasts for only a short period. So basically, malaria is an acute disease, so option C is the correct option. Chronic diseases are diseases such as diabetes or arthritis, which affect for a long period of time. So that's incorrect. Congenital diseases are birth defects such as blindness, etc. So option D is incorrect. Option 2 is incorrect. Metabolic diseases are risk factors such as high blood pressure, high sugar levels, etc. So option 4 is also incorrect. The correct answer for this question, asked in 2018, is option 3. Malaria is an acute disease. Let's look at some questions of mathematics now. Which of the following sets of numbers are relative primes? We have 4 sets here: 5185, 2665, 5776, as well as 2975. We have 4 options: only 2, only 4, both 1 and 3, all of the above. Which of these is correct? Now, let's look at what are relative primes. Now, relative primes are sets of numbers with only 1 as common factor. And an example of that is 4 and 9. So the factors of 4 are 4, 2, and 1, and the factors of 9 are 9, 3, and 1. So as you can see, the only common factor between the two is just 1. Now remember that relative primes are not the same. It doesn't have to be the same thing as prime numbers. So even though 2 primes put together are relative primes, they do not just limit themselves to prime numbers. For example, 4 as well as 9, both of them are composite numbers, but they can be classified together as relative primes. Now, having said that, let's look at each of the sets and find out whether they have a common factor other than 1. Now, set 1 says 51 and 85. Now, if you were to take 17 times 3, 7 3s are 21, 10 3s are 30, so 30 plus 20 gives you 50, so 51. So 51 has 17 as a factor. Now, what about 17 times 5? Well, 7 times 5 is 35. 50 plus 30 gives you 80, so 85. So as you can see, set 1 has 17 as a common factor. So that means this is not a relative prime. Now, what about set 2? 26 and 65. 26 divided by 2 gives you 13. 65 divided by 5 gives you 13. So 13 here is a common factor. That means set 2 is also not a relative prime set. Now, what about 57 and 76? Now, 76 divided by 4 gives us 19. So let's try 57. So 57 divided by 3, so basically it's 9 times 3 is 27, 1 times 3 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, so 57 divided by 3 gives us 19 as well. So as you can see, 19 is a common factor here, so 57 and 76 are not relative primes. Now, what about 4? Well, before looking at 4, let's look at our options. Only 2 is incorrect because 2 is not a relative prime. Both sets 1 and 3 are incorrect because 1 and 3 are not relative primes. All of the above is also incorrect because 1, 2, and 3 are not relative primes. So that leaves only one option correct. That means option 2, which says that only the fourth set is a relative prime. Now, how do we prove it? Well, let's look at 29. 29 is a prime number, so that means it only has 29 and 1 as factors. If you look at 75, you have 75, 25, 15, 5, 3, and 1. So 75 is a composite number, while 29 is a prime, but if you notice, both of them only have 1 as the common factor. So that means set 4 is a relative prime set, and that means option 2 is correct. Let's look at another question of mathematics. In a family of husband, wife, and daughter, the sum of the husband's age, twice the wife's age, and thrice the daughter's age is 85. Sum of twice the husband's age, 4 times the wife's age, and 6 times the daughter's age is 170. It's also given that the sum of 5 times the husband's age, 10 times the wife's age, and 15 times the daughter's age equals 450. You need to find the number of possible solutions in terms of the ages of the 3 people to this problem. Is it 0, 1, 2, or infinitely many? Now, this is a linear equation, in more than one variable. So first of all, let's define our variables here. So we have x as the age of the husband, y as the age of the wife, and z as the age of the daughter. Now the first equation is husband's age, twice the wife's age, and thrice the daughter's age is 85. So that means x plus 2y plus 3z gives us 85. Let's consider this as equation 1. Now let's look at the next line. Twice the husband's age plus 4 times the wife's age plus 6 times the daughter's age is 170. So that means we get 2x plus 4y plus 6z equals 170. Now notice that there is a common factor of 2 across all the terms, so we can divide the whole equation by 2, so that means x plus 2y plus 3z, and then when you divide 170 by 2, give 8, so 16 gives you 1, 0 goes down 10, 5 2s are 10, 10 minus 10 is 0, so that means 2x plus 4y plus 6z equals 170 is just 2 times equation 1. So now we already have an equation 1 repeated twice. Now let's look at the last equation. It says 5x plus 10y plus 15z equals 450. Now let's divide everything by 5, so you get x plus 2y plus 3z, and we need to divide 450 with 5, so 45 divided by 5 gives you 9, so 450 divided by 5 gives you 90, and this is equation 2. Now we compare equations 1 and 2. So a1 by a2 is 1 divided by 1, so that's 1. b1 by b2 is 2 divided by 2, that's again 1. c1 by c2 is 3 divided by 3, so that's 1 again. And d1 by d2 here is 85 divided by 90, so that's 17 divided by 18. So here, a1 by a2 equals b1 by b2 equals c1 by c2 is not equal to d1 by d2. So that means the terms on the left-hand side, the ratio of terms on the left-hand side are equal, but the ratio of terms on the right-hand side is not equal to the ratio of terms on the left. So that means this is the scenario where no solutions exist. So that means the correct answer for this question would be option 1, 0. The number of solutions here are 0. The reason being that the two equations that are formed are in the format a1 by a2 equals b1 by b2 equals c1 by c2, not equal to d1 by d2. So that means we would have no solutions, so option 1, 0 is the correct answer. Option 3 will never exist because in linear equations for more than one variable, we usually have either 0 solutions, a unique solution, or many solutions. And since the condition here is for 0 solutions, so that means option 2 and 4 is also incorrect. Option 1, 0 is the correct answer for this question asked in 2018. Now let's look at questions of mental ability. Mental ability. If plus means divided by means minus, minus means multiplied by, and multiplied by means plus, then find out the value of 12 plus 2 into 10 divided by 8 minus 2. So let's, change in the symbols. Now plus means divided by, so 12 plus 2 means 12 divided by 2. Next, 2 times 10. Now multiplication here means plus, so it'll be 2 plus 10. 10 divided by 8, division means minus, so 10 minus 8. 8 minus 2, here minus means multiplied by, so 8 into 2. So this is the correct order of the operators in this particular expression. Now, how do we solve this further? For that, we need to use the BODMAS rule. So that means first we need to look at bracket, then of, then division and multiplication come together, and after that addition and subtraction come together. So here we have division, so we'll put a bracket there because we have to divide that first. And then we have multiplication as well, 8 times 2, so we have to do that first. And then we solve further. 12 divided by 2 is 6 plus 10. 8 times 2 is 16, so 6 plus 10 gives you 16 minus 16. So 16 minus 16 is equal to 0, so that means option 1, 0, is the correct answer for this question asked in 2018. Now let's look at the final question of this episode. In a cricket season, India defeated Australia twice, West Indies defeated India twice, Australia defeated West Indies twice, India defeated New Zealand twice, West Indies defeated New Zealand twice. Which country has lost the most number of times? India, Australia, New Zealand, or the West Indies? So let's find out the number of losses for each country. So India, Australia, New Zealand, and the West Indies. First statement says India defeated Australia twice, so that means Australia has 2 defeats. Let's put tally marks. West Indies defeated India twice, India has 2 defeats. Australia defeated the West Indies twice, so the West Indies will now have 2 defeats. India defeated New Zealand twice, now New Zealand has 2 defeats. West Indies defeated New Zealand twice, so that means New Zealand has another 2 defeats. The total number of defeats for India are 2. For Australia, it's also 2. For the West Indies, it's also 2. But for New Zealand, it's 4. So that means option 3, New Zealand, is the correct option. Options 1, 2, and 4 are incorrect because the number here is just 2, which is less than the new number of defeats for New Zealand, that is 4. So option 3 is the correct option for this question asked in 2018. Now that concludes this episode of Tallentex. We hope you found this episode interesting. For more of our useful and interesting content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, which is Brain Blitz Audios. We have a lot of videos on various exams. For getting our latest updates, don't forget to hit the notifications button that's present below the video, and if you have any doubts regarding the questions or want to know more about stuff, then please reply to us in the comments section down below. So until the next webisode, take care, stay safe, bye bye for now.